Hey y'all, I'm Allison Asarch from Nashville, Tennessee.
Hey, I'm Sean Fraser from the Ritzy Kids.
Hunters, this is Johnny from Rail Motor.
Hey, it's Shane from Blind Season.
Hey, it's Rob Stanier, and you can check out my music on all the streaming platforms.
Check out my latest music on all the streaming sites.
Check out my debut album on all streaming platforms.
Check out our new debut album.
Check us out on Spotify and Apple Music. And you're listening to our friends, Braggy and Curly.
My favorite bands from Australia.
My two favourite podcasters,
Braggy and Curly.
Braggy and Curly.
On the
Unfiltered and Undiscovered podcast.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome to episode 107 of the Unfiltered and Undiscovered podcast. A really special evening tonight. I'm being a bit of a fanboy. I've got one of my most favourite, the lead singer of one of my most favourite bands joining us tonight, which is absolutely awesome. First up, let's welcome our co-host. We've got Braggy down there in Adelaide, and we got Rossi in Sydney. How are you, boys?
Fantastic. Just looking forward to the end of the cricket, hopefully.
Yeah, and there's a big game tomorrow night as well, Rossi.
Is there? I don't know what you're talking about.
That's right. It's a little game called State of Origin, isn't it?
Wasn't that game invented so Queenslanders could win occasionally?
I think we are favourites this time, Rossi.
You are.
Hey, which is always a bit of a concern when Queensland's Queenslander favourite. So
just quietly, Gary, Braggy losing Adelaide, but he's really a Queenslander.
Yes, I told me that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only a Queenslander for 3 games a year. I go for a South Australian or every other sport, except for obviously they don't play NRL here. So,
Oh, well. Pretty cocky up here at the moment. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. Hey, Rossi, I saw something interesting on I-94 about an interview with Richard Lawson, the ex-Lime Spider.
Yeah.
And the release that a new long-lost 5-track release by the Sydney band The Most was now available on streaming platforms.
Well, The Most were in this final of the Southern Cross Band Comp, which was the Southern Cross / Strawberry Hills. The Strawberry Hills changed its name from the Southern Cross Hotel. It got sold to this big chain, and The Most were in the band comp against the Lime Spiders in the final, right?
All right.
And
this is the legendary band Battle of the Bands.
Yeah, and the Most played, and the Spiders came on. It was Mick Blood, Richard Jacomison, and they just looked at each other and said, "We're fucked. They're too good," and they were right. Yeah. But then the Tony Bamback, Richard Lawson, and Jed Corbin all ended up in the Lime Spiders anyway.
Yeah, it's a good story, isn't it? A 5-track release. It's never been available as CD or on vinyl, and they've put it out on a streaming platform. And I had a bit of a listen to it today, and I love listening to new music from the early 80s. So
1986.
Oh, we've got plenty of that.
No, it was 80. It was earlier than that, Bragg.
It was about 82, 83, I think.
82, 83, yeah, absolutely.
Richard Lawson, on his night, was a stellar drummer, man. Richard was the man. Oh, boy. The Lime Spiders swung with Richard in the band.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's
introduce... I had a stage to those guys a few times and just...
Oh, yeah, they were.
Let's introduce our special guest, shall we? We've got Gary Slater joining us now. Gary,
shut up there. Sorry.
That's all right.
No, that's all right. Gary comes to us from a litany of bands, the Viscounts, Voodoo Lust, Trilobytes, and now he plays in Dr Bombay, celebrating their 10th anniversary. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I did a little bit. I had to make a few notes of how many bands I've been in because I couldn't quite remember, so I better write them down. But 9 bands actually got to the point of playing. So, God, wow scary. Yeah.
Now, Rossi did say, Gary. Rossi did say that you were one of the hardest working men in rock. So,
we know it to be true, don't we, Gaz?
Oh well, it was a pleasure though, wasn't it? Pleasure to work.
We spent many a night in either the back of a truck, a dressing room, or a hotel for many, many years, having too much fun doing that. What I do know about Gaz is that, how old were you in your first band, Gary, and what was that about?
I was about 12 or 13, maybe 13, 12. And then it was with my 2 cousins who a bit older than me, and fortunately, I was just a little kid, and I just always wanted to be a singer in a band, you know. So my cousins are a bit older, and they could play a bit. So, and luckily for me, they liked like Chuck Berry and Status Quo and all that sort of stuff, which I just loved as a little kid growing up. And so I started singing with them, really. And then, then just went from there. And then joined another band called the Dull Trio when I was 14 or 15. It kind of did more Led Zeppelin-y and Deep Purple and stuff, but also that, actually, I must say, originals early on too. Even in the first band when I was 12, 13, I still started writing melodies and lyrics, and we tried, you know, doing our own songs even then. So, Dull Trio, 14, 15. About 16 years old is when I met Hound Dog Harper. He was 14. Yeah. And there's a guy getting around, John, who was actually it's funny, he was a bass player, he's good. He got around lots of different bands, and he was trying to just sort of get people that he liked from bands and form his own band. So he hooked up with Tony and I and said, come around my place. And we started a new band with him called This Week's Special. And that's how I met Tony. And I started writing with Tony.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then after This Week's Special, 3B2, which was sort of, late probably 78, I think, to early 80s. And that was like, we did well in 3B2. We played with heaps of big bands, lots of joint efforts at Triple Z, Sunny Boys, Supports. Did well with that band as well, and that was good. So, and then the Viscounts after that. So, I don't know. Where do you want me to start?
So this is where I can pick up, because I remember I went, me and my mates, because I'm a punter, I'm not a muso, but I love music and I love live music. And we went to a Cockroaches gig. So I'm sure it was a Cockroaches gig, and I'm sure it was the Callum Vale Hotel.
It was.
And at that time in Brisbane, it was out of suburbia, and the Viscounts were the support. So that was my first sort of seeing Gary Slater and a band up there on stage. But we started to get a little bit confused, because maybe 2 weeks later we were somewhere, I don't necessarily remember where, and Voodoo Lust came on stage, and we all looked at each other and said, wasn't that guy in the Viscounts? It didn't tweak to us that you could be in two bands at once.
Well, it's funny, because the bore too much with it, but the story, what happened there was the Viscount, after 3B2 with Tony and I for probably 4 years, just all our own songs, a couple of covers, but pretty much all our own songs. And then in Brisbane at the time, we were playing like a lot of original bands, quite a lot, but I don't know, say twice a month, 3 times a month. But cover bands obviously were playing like 3 or 4 or 5 nights a week, and that's what Tony and I wanted to do. We just wanted to play, and, we just couldn't do an original. So what can we do? So we came up with this concept of playing 60 songs, but basically in our own style. And that's what the Viscounts were. And it worked a treat, because we could play, like we did residencies at Twin Towns and all these big clubs, and the Carlton Circuit, which was all the suburban barns and stuff. And we could still play like inner city cool venues. So it was kind of, and we just played like a lot. I'm talking like 3 or 4 nights a week, and we did 3 or 4 sets a night. So we went from playing 3 sets a month to playing 10, 12 sets a week. Yeah. So we just, in the Viscounts for a few years there, we just got so much experience. It was amazing, but it was also a bit boring because it was covers. So at first it was interesting. It was, great, but novelty wore off.
But I guess, Gary, you really hone your skill there too, your chops, don't
That's
you?
What I was getting at,
Yeah.
It was like, Tony and I had already been in This Week's Special and 3B2 together for 5 or 6 years. So we'd already played at least 100 gigs together before the Viscounts. But then in the Viscounts, within 2 years or so, we played hundreds of sets. So that was great experience. And so quickly what happened then, but Tony left the Viscounts to form Voodoo Lust with Brad Ferguson and Dean Muller, not with me at all. And I was still playing in the Viscounts. And funny enough, I actually played a gig with the Viscounts and Voodoo Lust together. And it was, But I wasn't in Voodoo Lust though. I was in the Viscounts still. So, and I actually mixed Voodoo Lust. It was the Viscounts PA, because we had our own truck and crew and everything. So, and I mixed Voodoo Lust after the Viscounts had played. And I'd seen them at a party once, and I just remember thinking, my God, these guys are, so good. And that night, like, they asked me if I wanted to join, and after the gig, if I wanted to join, because I needed a frontman sort of thing. And so obviously I said yes, and then I went home, and it was terrible, really, but I woke my wife up. I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I was just a sheet metal worker with a mortgage. I just woke her up at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, going to Sydney in a band, and we'll just
And away you went.
So yeah.
And that first single that you put out, Shake Shake Hey Yeah, went on to become #1 on the indie charts.
Did yeah. Thinking about that,
and I've just got to show that while
the vinyl.
You got the.
Brad's
boys
very
on the
attractive,
back
wasn't
there.
he? Brad was very attractive, wasn't he?
How young does Gary look in
Brad's
that?
amazing. Well, it's funny you say that too, because like we thought we were so old, because we've been in 3v2 and this week's special and all the other bands for years. Like by the time Voodoo Lust started, we'd already been going for like 10 years in our head.
Yeah.
So it was like when we went to Sydney, and I was what 25 and Tony was 23. And we remember having these conversations all the time. Don't tell everyone how old we are. Just don't tell everyone, because we just thought, wow, we're veterans already. Yeah.
So you guys, when you were doing that Queensland stuff, there was a little bit of that Hutchison thing up there in those days, wasn't it?
That's what
Hutchos. Hutchos circuit,
Yeah.
where you just get on and you get out there and like you do three sets a night, and sometimes the headliner comes in and you play the support of the headliner too.
Sometimes that's right, and that's what again we could just do all of that, and we could still play all these little inner city cool indie gigs as well, because literally we play like who covers or whatever,
Yeah.
It was quite interesting.
And you
Hasn't
go all
young
the
Dean
way up,
done well for
the
himself?
coast up to Cairns, wouldn't you, and back again?
Yep.
Not quite to Cairns, but close. Yeah, and that was
Townsville.
just all the way up there, and just relentless. Yeah, tour, play.
Your old mate Dean's doing all right these days.
Yeah, Cosmics. Yeah, I know. It's funny. I was thinking about.
He's playing in the Cosmic Psychos.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times.
I watched the clip for Fuckwit City, and I'm like, really? No way.
They're actually so good, aren't they?
They really are.
Dean today looks like when we first went to Sydney. That's the funny thing. Like, I think I joined the band in like May or June. I reckon we did a first gig with me in a week after I joined or something, 2 weeks maybe. Then we went to the recording studio 6 weeks, I reckon, after I joined, and recorded Shake Shake and No No in 6 hours, and that's including setting up, recording, mixing, mastered, finished. That was it, 6 hours, and none of us had ever seen a studio before. And that was it, done. And then that sold bucket loads. Crazy.
Even at that early stage, the songs were there. Like
absolutely.
I listen. Like I've mixed the band a fair few times, and the songs were always what made me happy about listening to Voodoo Lust, and the harmony, the pop songs, the ear, the style.
Well, I guess that comes down to playing a lot again, Gary. I guess, and the song evolves, and you know what works and what doesn't work. And you go to the studio, bang, you do it.
Tony and I have very similar tastes in that, we like tunes, really. Yeah. It's funny, Voodoo is obviously known for their energy and all that, and get associated with the sort of punk era and that, but we don't look at ourselves as a punk band at all in any way. Like, we're a pop band.
Pop melodies,
and that's, same as Dr Bombay or pretty much every band I've ever been in. It's like pop songs. It's got energy, but it's pop songs.
You're a bit of a lover of Elvis Costello, for example.
God. How long does this interview go? Elvis Costello changed my life forever and a day.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was singing, originals, but also, I guess the main influence was Status Quo and Deep Purple and stuff like that. Yeah. And, I remember obviously the Sex Pistols came out and there was a little talk about Ramones and all this stuff. But then a good friend of mine, Philip, who I was in a band with called, the Dull Trio, the second band I was ever in. Great guitar player, Phil. Anyway, he said, mate, you've got to come and listen to this new album, And it was My Aim Is True, Elvis's first album. Like, we just sat there and just went one song after another, and it was like there was no guitar solos. The songs were like 2 minutes long, but great, and then they just finished, and there was another song, and we just both looked at each other and go, wow. And the next one, oh, my God. And I've seen Elvis Costello every time he's come to Australia. I've never missed him ever since 1978. First time he came, I've never missed a tour ever. And I've been to often Sydney and Brisbane shows each tour as well. So,
and he still makes good records, Elvis, too. He's still
going. Boy Named Dick, his last album is just absolutely fantastic. And I'd say the last few before that probably weren't his best, but he's probably done 27 great albums.
Oh, man, Punch the Clock. I played that thing Punch the Clock over and over and over again. I could talk about Elvis Costello for ages too.
I live with a 19-year-old who reckons Welcome to the Working Week may be the best pop song ever written.
This year's Model, the second album, same thing. I mean, I must also add in, though, right at that same time, almost as much as Elvis Costello, was the first two Joe Jackson albums.
I was going to say that.
Like those two albums and the first two Elvis Costello albums I've listened to.
Look sharp, man. Look sharp.
Those four albums I've probably listened to more than any other albums in my collection, I'd say.
Very similar with the keyboards on both those albums, that piano.
Just bass lines.
Bass lines,
It's really prevalent in the way you guys write songs, though.
Yeah, I think
I can hear it. I can hear it as a tone in your voice. I've always heard that.
Well,
we have had
as a compliment. Thank you.
We may have had that conversation before on the odd occasion.
It's certainly not a conscious thing for me, but I can't believe that Elvis Costello has influence because I've listened to him so much, And I mean, I certainly don't think my songs sound like his, but I can hear that. There's a new song on a new album, which is pretty Elvis Costello. Anyway,
absolutely. So I've got to put a pause in the conversation because Braggy, have you got your Who Am I?
I've got it from last week.
Yep, throw it
on.
Okay? Let's go.
And which you told me.
Gary, what we do is to do a Who Am I, and we give three lots of guesses, three lots of hints.
Is the answer Tony Hound Dog Harper?
No. Normally I try and fit it in with the scene where whoever we're interviewing. So I'm a week. Okay. So you remember last week was Old Mate from
Demon
from British New Wave heavy metal.
Yeah. Okay. So bear with me with that.
Okay. So it's an English band. So an English person.
Gary has an unfair advantage.
It's a bit of a long one. I was born on the 7th of August 1958 in Walksop, Nottinghamshire. You got it, Gary?
No? What year was it again, sorry?
1958.
58 in Walksop, Nottinghamshire. My mother worked part-time in a shoe shop. My father was a mechanic in the British Army. Initially, I was brought up by my grandparents. I started school at Manton Primary in Walksop while my parents moved away to Sheffield. Soon afterwards, when I was 6, so it's a guy. I was also dispatched to Sheffield, where I attended a primary school in Manatop. My first musical experience was dancing in my grandparents' front room to The Twist by Chubby Checker. And the first record I recall owning was She Loves You by the Beatles. I tried to play an acoustic guitar belonging to my father, but it blistered my fingers. At age 11, I was sent to boarding school in Northamptonshire, where I was picked on and routinely bullied by the older boys, leading me to become an outsider. I joined the school's cadet force, which gave me access to live ammunition, which I used to create explosions and booby traps. I also became attracted to progressive rock and early heavy metal after hearing Deep Purple's Child in Time being played in another student's room. I soon discovered Black Sabbath, Jethro Tull, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That's part one.
Okay.
Any guesses?
I've got no idea.
Look, I'm just doing my sums. We'll keep going on that one, but
Okay.
yeah, I reckon that once I know the answer, I'll know who it is, but I'll work back from there.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to move off Elvis Costello for a little bit because I just want to share. I read somewhere, Gary, with Voodoo Lust, you did something like 1,020 shows over 6 years or something, which just,
That'd be right.
I would doubt it, other than Hound Dog Harper
has a book.
Book the whole lot. So I don't doubt it. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I reckon I've seen a minor percentage of them, but I used to love seeing Voodoo Lust, and so did my mates Scott and Sack. And so when I made a touch base with them this week, I said, "What was your favourite Voodoo Lust gig?" And I just need to share this with you because hopefully you might remember them. The gigs, I don't know, out of 1,020. All right,
I think the answer to that already.
So Scotty shared a gig. Apparently there was a pub on St Paul's Terrace that was closing down and being demolished, and you were the fitting final gig for that particular pub. He remembers that one.
Yeah.
And Shaq Sack talked about a gig at the Treasury. I think you played the Treasury just about every second week there for a stage.
Yep.
And afterwards, he shared a chat and a beer with yourself. So they're two gigs that stand out from Voodoo Lust. Yeah.
My favourite Voodoo Lust moment, and I mentioned this to Gary, is the Voodoos were supporting the Tribesmen as they did on
56
times.
So
and every time you supported the Tribesmen, I probably mixed you.
Yeah.
Just about. And at the Roxy in Brisbane, Voodoos are on. Gary carries a carton of VB from the rider to the front of the stage and says, "All right, who wants a beer?" And the crowd's just gone, "Whoa!" And Gary goes, "Well, you can't because there's none fucking left." He put the box on his head and sang the rest of the song.
Now that is stage
I
management.
cried with laughter. I cried laughing.
Oh, mate.
And you're still bopping up and down the beer box on your head.
Too many musicians take themselves too seriously, yeah?
That's right.
I'm a real believer in that. The music is serious as, obviously. You put everything you've got, your heart and soul, everything into practicing and writing, whatever. But when you got to perform, It's not, it's not Mozart,
How did you find the transition moving from Brisbane to Sydney?
Ooh, full on. Yeah, full on.
People were nice down here, though.
For my life, I had, again, as I said, I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old and a wife, obviously, and a mortgage and a house. So just logistically, it was like, what the hell? Everyone in the band, like Dean, we had to wait for him to finish grade 12. So he finished grade 12 and we basically, boom, went to Sydney. And, we all had partners. We'd all split up within 6 months of getting to Sydney, all of us. Just insane. I don't know, Sydney then was so different to Brisbane. Like, my God, we just couldn't believe. I remember, I think one of our first gigs was at the Mansell Room on a Wednesday night, and we were on third or something, one at like 3:30 in the morning. In Brisbane, everything finished at 12 o'clock back then. Just that sort of thing. And just obviously the logistics of Sydney, just getting around. It freaked us out a bit, truly. But we could play a lot. And we were really excited about that. That's what we went there to do, play a lot. And it was great.
But for the first time you guys hit the stage in Sydney, the first time I saw you guys, you could just tell you were so polished, the energy was high, and just you knew what you're doing. You had structure that other people didn't have about their show. Even at the start of the show, they'd come out and the drummer would drum, right? You start with the Peter Gunn theme, right? The drummer would drum. Then the bass player would come in Then Tony would play, then Gary would start. And that was in lieu of a sound check, right? Gave the sound guy time to pull up a drum sound, dial the bass sound in, dial the guitar in. Gary sang, and it was just those little tricks.
We're conscious of everything. Like the centimetre angle that an amplifier is aimed at. It's just everything is so important when you're on stage to make a difference and make it perfect. And again, the performance is the icing on the cake, but you've got to be able to do all those other little things, which only comes from earlier, like we said, luckily enough to play literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sets, really, before we even started Voodoo Lust.
But to be fair to Gary, it's more than just that, because what I can tell you about the Voodoos and why every headlining band in the world loved to have Voodoo Lust supporting them is that Voodoo Lust would turn up en masse at load-in and bump in as a band. Yeah. Every one of them, all 4 band members, and even the lighting person they had would load. And we'd have a 3-man crew and 4 Voodoos. And like, if you knew the Voodoos were your support band, you'd go, happy days. And they were just, they had a work ethic and they understood what they were doing. And even when Gary wasn't doing shows.
I love crews, you know that.
Yeah.
But Gary, I feel more like sort of almost more comfortable with roadies than I do with musicians. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's just I grew up in housing commission or something, I don't know, but I'm just working class, played lots of team sport, just, I don't know, like it just seems the right thing to do, just help out, be fair,
But the other blokes, their work ethic was incredible. When Gary wasn't doing shows, he'd make money by going loading for other bands like Lime Spiders or Painters and Dockers or Joe Camilleri. Big bands, big PAs, and Gary would be doing that.
And even when Voodoo's got to the point where we were getting like good money for supports, obviously when you start you're getting $100 or whatever. We were obviously getting some pretty big money to do supports when we got a bit of a profile. And even then I would still do the load in and load out, and like the Voodoos would, because otherwise we'd have to pay someone anyway, so they would just pay me. So I would basically load in, load out, and do the gig, and then drive to the next gig, load in, load out, do the gig, drive next gig. So yeah, always load it, always.
The omnipresent Voodoo van.
Wow, thought about the Voodoo van today as well. Even that, at the time you just do it, but
it's so true, nuts. Gary. What you say about all that other stuff is the hard work, and you put the icing on the top. And if people are listening now, they're not musicians. I just want to say, like, every room's so different, and so all that experience, this room's a bigger room, so I'm going to have my amp set this way for this one, and that's little traps you fall down early on. And the more and more you do it, is that right, Rossi? The more and more you do it, the more pro you get. And so lugging in and lugging out, you must learn shit as well.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Try not to get drunk. That's one of the things.
Yes, but we would enjoy ourselves on the odd occasion.
Oh, man, yes. I don't remember loading out a few times, Rossi. I've got to be honest.
You and me both, mate. Don't you worry about that.
I didn't drop too much. I got to quickly tell you one quick story. Just the other day, I shared this song. We were playing. I think it was a Central Leagues club in.
Central Coast Leagues.
Central Coast Leagues. I think it's famous for a six staircase concrete stair load-in only way shit house. And we played there with the Angels. Couple of bloody big semis rock up, and we're just going, oh my God. Anyway, so we loaded in, loaded out. Anyway, when it comes to load out, they had this guy in their crew. He was like about my size, so a little fella, but obviously a real speed out at the time, nuts, crazy. And we're getting down the W bin. It might have been.
Yeah,
I reckon we knew him. You'd know.
Yeah.
But anyway, like the W bins. You remember then they were like double Ws. They were like the size of a bloody truck. These
boats,
4 people. Yeah.
Anyway, we get to the stairs outside there. End of the night, he says, "I'll get on the front. 2 ears on the back." And he goes, "Yeah." It was me and Brad on the back.
Yeah.
Sure enough, halfway down the stairs, it goes. And it's down the stairs, and oh my God, this guy's going to be dead, And we're like, going, where are you, mate? And we just fainted. And he was like stuck inside the W bin. Skin off him everywhere. Just, anyway.
Yeah.
You get it.
Oh, man. But those guys work so hard. Those guys, like those Angels shows, the semi-trailer, the amount of gear they had, it was.
Oh, it must have been
like
the amp racks must have been.
Yeah,
they were the worst things to freaking lift in, weren't they?
Huge. Sometimes we'd load out after like a gig and then drive to the next, city.
Yeah.
It's just crazy these days. Think about the Voodoo van. I got a quick. I was thinking about that today. It was a 1600cc Mazda van, so not a big van. And we used to take crew with us, like, we'd have lighting and sound. Kenny or Jackie and Adrian Carroll would come with us. The band, and Tony'd have 2 marshals, bass rig, drum kit, all our gear, and only had like 2 seats in the front. Someone would sit on the motor between the seats.
Oh,
And then all the gear, like about a 2-foot corridor where 3 people would have to sit across the van with this wall of amps next to them. And that was it. That's how we toured everywhere from Townsville to Adelaide, probably 600 gigs, I reckon, driving, just packing everything into that van. Never flew.
We're always happy to see it. Always happy to see the Voodoo van pull up.
Yeah, it was hilarious. And so many breakdowns and so many. We used a bass string once for an accelerator cable through the window. Middle of nowhere, like we just got this bass string for an accelerator, whatever.
Tony wasn't bad with motors, though.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I was probably more into that than him then. He's more into it now. He's I don't know, he's always got like a bunch of cars, Tony. Yeah, and a bunch of guitars, obviously.
Yeah, Tony's collect. We did a show with Voodoo Lust, played at the factory floor in Sydney 5 years back, Gaz, maybe 5-6 years back. And Tony said he'd only do the gig if he could do his gear. So Gary's driven down from Brisbane with all the stage gear, and
Tony's it filled
one of the guitars Tony sent down was a double neck Gibson like Jimmy Page played, right?
Oh, right.
And I was out the back tuning guitars, and Tony's called for that song, that guitar. I poked it through the window. I heard a gasp from people going, "Oh my God, he's got a double neck guitar."
He's got
it. Tony.
He's probably got about. He's a bit coy about it, but about 70, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the same amount of amps too. So ridiculous. He's a avid collector. He still plays every day. He's a he's just born to play. When I met him when he was like 14 years old or whatever, he could already play like exactly the same as he can play now. It doesn't make he's not any better. Like at 14, he could play Hendrix like it was just nothing. Just an amazing player.
So one of the highlights, Gary, with Voodoo Lust, and as we were talking before the show, Dr Bombay, any band that you're in gets the pleasure, I guess, of Gary Slater up front and the energy and the frantic and I cannot understand how you're still doing what you're doing as a frontman for a band as we all get unfortunately older and time does its trick on us.
A lot of exercise, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I exercise all the time, always have. Always played sport, always, I played sport up until I was 40. That's the thing, I always played sport as well. I was just, maybe a few years in the real nitty-gritty of Voodoos where I didn't play sport, but, I pretty much played so many seasons of different sports and just love running, still run, most days, good 5K run most days. And I guess I've been a tiler for like 30 years. That kind of helps. Yeah. Do a few hundred leg squats a day and carry tiles upstairs and mix cement by hand, just stuff, But
Gaz and I we've both had the shoulder, Gaz, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm still not back. I've got about 3 months to go till I'm back at work officially. So I'm just still hanging in there, but it's a lot better than it was. But I'm still running a lot though, thank God. I couldn't play guitar for about 6 months. That killed me.
Big part of it is healthy diet too, though.
Yeah, healtly diet. Yeah,
no, really is.
I don't know whether you ask the V question.
Living well.
The vegan.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I've been vegan for about 15 years. I was vegetarian for about 17 before that. So 32 years, and that's no eggs or anything for like 32 years. So that's a very important thing to me, obviously. But
It obviously works for you.
Or whatever, but veganism is obviously massive to me. Big
it is, but it works for you guys, doesn't it?
Well, I've never met a vegan that didn't say they felt better when they went vegan.
That's right.
Exactly.
In 30 years. So,
good point.
What do you say? That's good evidence. It works. You just got to be a little bit smart about what you eat. You can't just eat. Because literally, you could eat potato chips and Coca-Cola and be a vegan, couldn't you? But you need to. You find most vegans actually seem to be much more conscious of food groups because they need to be, I suppose. So most vegans get knowledge as you go, and you never stop learning. I guess it's about food and stuff. But yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
It would be a lot easier nowadays too, Gary, wouldn't it? Than when you
Totally.
were 30 years ago. That would have been tough,
Well,
and especially in Australia.
Hard, very hard. Like Carol, my wife, and I, we were just starting to hook up around about. We already knew each other, and like. She was my girlfriend Jackie. You'd remember Jackie, you'd remember Carol from back then. She was like Jackie's best friend, and we were actually playing with the Uncanny X-Men at Newcastle. And the sound guy John, I think his name was, his partner was outside getting a hot dog, and Carol went out there to get a hot dog, and they actually served vegetarian hot dogs. And she said to Carol, you should try one of them. And she explained a little bit to her, and that was the catalyst for Carol. And around about the same time for me, the catalyst was just being on tour relentlessly and eating shit takeaway food, which was essentially mostly meat, isn't it? Because if you go to a hot box at a servo, you get sausages or pies, or and I was just had every gut issue imaginable eating this shit, And I just said, right, that's it. And I stopped eating that. So selfish, it wasn't for the animals, it was for me.
Yeah.
But Carol, it was for the animals, and we hooked up pretty much together around about that same time. So we very quickly evolved into understanding all the other benefits of it, and we both just went down that path together. And veganism was just the minute someone explained the dairy industry to me, we were vegan that night. So,
wow.
It was, I was ignorant, and it was a moment I wasn't ignorant, I was vegan.
Yeah.
So that's that's
excellent.
It. Thank you.
Okay, this one's called Satisfied, and thank you, and good afternoon.
Stop Breaking My Heart went to #1 on the indie charts as well. And there were 2 EPs. Is there any regrets around what happened with Voodoo Lust and how
I'm
the
so glad you asked me that question, because obviously there's massive regrets, and recording is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Like, to my opinion, and I didn't write the songs particularly in Voodoo Lust. I helped finish them off a bit, and stuff like that. But Tony wrote most of the songs and Brad initially.
Yeah.
And to me, we probably had at least 3 albums at least worth of good material that we didn't record.
Yeah.
And that, as a songwriter, I've written more songs as I've gotten older. That's sacrilegious to me. Those best songs that Tony and Brad wrote aren't recorded. And if you've got a regret as a musician, that's got to be it. It's like, wow, I didn't document that good song I wrote. And Brad, Brad was a complicated man, but he was a genius in my opinion. And
Beyond Belief. You remember that one?
There's honestly, Rossi, there's 8 or 10 songs that Brad wrote early on in the band that are masterpieces that never ever. Once he left the band, we stopped sort of playing them live, and obviously we were never going to record them. Although we did do what was a couple of his songs, like She Says Psychedelic.
Yeah,
Brad, but he just had that thing about him. Tony and I are very similar in we're kind of like I don't know, I guess more classic sort of rock and roll pop writers, whereas Brad was anything could come out of that man. He was more artistic. Tony and I are more tradesman-like.
But because you could all sing, it added another layer to it as well, right?
It did.
Well, incredible. Like before I joined, again, they were already so impressive.
So
before I joined, I had Brad and Tony and Dean who could all sing well. So I'd watch them and think, my God, and then they asked me to join. So, of course, I was like, wow. So we could do 4-part harmonies. And again,
we're all big fans.
Yeah, I remember amount of times in the tour band after gigs or whatever, and it's complimentary. People would say, because we'd do silly things on stage, and that's what they'd remember. And it was almost a little bit, it was our own fault, I get it, but sometimes you think, I wish someone would come up to us and say, well, what about when you did that 3- and 4-part harmony, That was amazing. And that arrangement where you did that was really good, because so much work goes into all that, as you know. It's not just jumping around being silly. Yeah. But anyway, it is what it's rock and roll.
So, is there any way to bring these songs back from the dead? Is there live recordings of them?
Oh, yeah. There is some. They vary in quality. And, there's actually, there's a demo of, I think, 6 or 8 songs that I only came in to my hands about a year or 2 ago as well, which I forgot we even did. So, and it's actually pretty good. But, look, we're fussy, and Tony is incredibly fussy about everything, and I take my hat off to him. He's not going to release anything that's not spot on. And so unfortunately, no. We wish we could. We can't even make a compilation album because we don't know where everything is. Like we've got sort of maskers, all 2-inch tape and all this stuff. There's literally things like Tony says, well, I think that's in the cupboard at my mum's. I don't know where, So we just don't even know where even all our microphones are. So we can't even put it, because we thought about if we did another gig or two, it's not out of the question, but it'd be nice to have something. If it was, we could do a compilation album. Here we go. We just, it makes it, we can't.
It'd be nice to bring your music because it's, into the streaming world, because I was just thinking before, Gary, with the energy on stage and the dynamics between the band, that it's a shame. In a way, you were powered by that generation. But today, with the advent of, iPhone phone coverage and videos on stage and all of this, I could just imagine how awesome the Voodoos would have been in respect of, all the content that potentially could have been created through social media and driven the band. So
it's ironic, isn't it? I mean, you can't take it back, but absolutely, we've had a lot of people say that similar thing to us. Like what happened? We got offered a major record deal as well.
Yeah,
if not 2, one I know of absolutely.
Yeah,
and another one sniffed and asked and stuff. So definitely one absolute offer that we knocked back.
Yeah,
because we just felt as though being independent was more important. We were very much from that sort of era of the old midnight oil thing, right? So you can't sign to a major, And at that similar time, Trilobytes and a few other bands signed two majors, and it was the same time that we were offered, and we decided not to. So In hindsight, do I regret that? Maybe, yeah. Sometimes no. I mean, but we I guess we had ourselves to blame. We had the chance to go to the next level, really, and we said no. So.
Well, I'm very grateful you got Taste of Bitterness on recording.
Yeah,
so that's
what
one
a
of my
song!
favourite songs.
What a song!
Great song. Yeah, wow. What can I say? My dog's written a few beauties, that's for sure. I was lucky enough to get to sing them. So,
yeah. So then, when did Voodoo's break up?
I think about 92.
Okay.
So 91, 92.
What was the next step for you in your journey?
Trilobytes, straight away. I left Voodoo Lust and I was in, well, I didn't leave Voodoo Lust. Voodoo Lust left me. So the story, it is what it is now. But at the time I was like, what the fuck? I didn't see it coming. I was like flabbergasted. So, hey, the world fell out for me. I was like, what the hell? And then I literally got asked to join the Trilobytes a week or two later. So Dolly left the Trilobytes pretty much at the same time that Tony disbanded the Voodoos. And in the end, Brad came back on the scene and Tony went to England with Brad.
The upsets.
Yeah, so, hey, look, it's interesting, again, at the time, I was like, what the hell? Tony and I gave each other a hug at the airport, still best mates there, and off he went. So, that's what he needed to do. I get it.
Yeah.
But obviously at the time, for me, it was like, whoa, I was still, heads down, ass up into the Voodoos, even though at the time I was managing the Voodoos, booking the Voodoos, and tour managing the Voodoos and singing. So it was hectic. My life was mental. So, it's kind of a relief in a way, I guess. But then, when Trilobytes, who I just obviously loved, asked me to join, it was like, beauty. Well, sweet. All right. Next step, I'll join the Trilobytes. And, off I did. And, that was interesting. I mean, I wanted to change the name. That's another story. But,
of the Trilobytes?
Yeah. Glenn Abbott, different drummer at the time as well, because Stymo left as well.
Stymo's gone, yeah.
Yeah, so Glenn Abbott, who ended up joining Machine Gun Fellatio, and myself joined, and I straight away sort of was starting to contribute melodies and stuff and lyrics, and obviously Dolly is just an incredible lyricist and nothing like me. I write pop songs. Dolly writes poetry. It's just incredible what he writes. He's a totally different technique to writing, and the whole Trilobytes a different technique to Voodoo Lust. Different, it's like not as poppy as Voodoo Lust, So I could still sing like in a rock voice. I could do all the Trilobyte songs and hit the notes and all the rest of it. To me, I thought, and I remember early on suggesting, well, I'm starting to write songs for the band. It's sounding really different, Let's change the name and just start again, new band.
Yeah.
I understand also, the Trilobytes legacy, and, it's hard to let go, like they had all these great songs and albums under their belt, So we did one album together, and Rob Younger did it with us, and a single as well. And it was about 3 years. It was great. Like, wonderful band, fantastic musicians and great guys. Love them all, like great times. But didn't quite have the magic, I think. I think we needed to, I think we should have just started again. But, hey, that's my opinion. And
Marty Martine's a pretty special player too, isn't he?
Well, he really is.
He's the secret sauce. Slater's good, yeah. And of course, Scotty. Scotty's hilarious.
Scotty's really good too. He's an absolute wally head, but he's amazing. I love Scotty to death. I played cricket with Scotty as well. He's a great bass player too. And probably the most energetic bass player I've ever been on stage with. You had to be careful on stage with.
Up and down like Scotty.
Whatever he is, and swinging that bass around. It was scary a bit, but I love my time in the Trilobytes. It was fantastic. But again, I just got to be honest. It just always felt. How many great bands have replaced singers, 2 or 3 in history? It's a really hard thing to do, and I'm not I'm not unusual here. I tried to join the band, sang the songs, but Dolly's irreplaceable. Like in hindsight, he's just irreplaceable. It just had to be a different band, That's life. I'm not complaining. Great friends, great mates, and to be on stage with them was like. Wow, I mean, I'm privileged, wow, you'd be on stage with these bands, like, and Glenn Abbott is like second to none drummer, brilliant. Yeah. Be on stage with these musicians, like it's, you don't ever complain about that, that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay,
those Machine Gun Fellatio guys did good too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was so happy for Glenn. I was so happy for Glenn. Glenn's a lovely guy, and again, wonderful drummer, I was so happy for him when that happened for him, yeah.
All right, Braggy.
Yeah, I forgot about it, Kelly.
Yeah.
I
was enjoying the conversation as well, and then I'm going, oh, that's right, part 2. All right, part two of Who Am I?
When we left, this guy just discovered metal and explosives. I try and make it interesting, Rossi, eh? Initially, I wanted to play the drums, but then I discovered I had a singing voice. And after being expelled from boarding school for participating in a prank in which I allegedly urinated in the headmaster's dinner, I returned home to Sheffield in 1976 and enrolled at King Edward VII High School, where I joined my first band, Paradox. We rehearsed in the garage of the drummer's father and place and made local newspaper headlines when a steel worker was awoken by their performance and tried to smash the band's drum kit. Soon afterwards, the band split up. After leaving school with A-levels in English, history, and economics, I applied for a place at Queen Mary College in London and immediately began playing in bands. I got involved in the entertainment committee. One day, you'd be a roadie for the Jam. The next, you'd be putting up the Stonehenge backdrop for Hawkwind. In 1977, I met Paul Noddy White, a multi-instrumentalist who owned a PA, and drummer Steve Jones to form a band called Speed because of the way we played, not of the drugs.
Joe Strummer, sure.
Go, who?
It's not Joe Strummer.
No, it's not Joe Strummer.
It's older than that.
I began writing my own material after White taught me how to play 3 chords on the guitar. Although Speed played several gigs at the Green Man pub in Plumstead, the band did not last long, but it encouraged me to continue to work towards being a musician. I spotted an ad in Melody Maker, singer wanted for a recording project, and applied.
Johnny Rotten.
Huh?
Johnny Rotten, Johnny Lloyd.
No.
I'm out of here.
You're going in the wrong style of music. We played pubs on a regular basis to small audiences, and I began to develop my stagecraft as a frontman. Whilst at a gig at the Prince of Wales in Gravesend, guitarist Paul Sampson paid a visit, and he was impressed by my stage act, and he invited me to be the new singer for his band, Sampson. That's where I'm going to leave the second part.
Okay, Samson.
You remember them?
No.
No.
Rossi, you close to it?
Oh, I got a few ideas.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, interesting, Trilobytes. The album that you did with them is noticeably, well, in my mind, different from some of their.
Totally.
You play that, say, a Legacy of Morons piece, and then you put on the album.
Different band, right?
And it is a different band. So, yeah, it's interesting that you were thinking we should have a new name because...
Yeah, well, I suggested it. I didn't just think it. I suggested it right from the start.
Yeah.
But, hey, I'm into democracy and, band vote, and then I'll give everything I got when it's decided. And so it was. I think Glenn and I, the new boys wanted to change the name, and the others didn't. So it was kind of understandable, totally get it, but that's the way it was. So we just tried our best, But yeah, I agree. It's totally different.
I believe we call that party unity.
Well, that's right. It's a rarity, Rossi. It's dying up.
It is.
Also, when we did that album, Lost Generation, which I actually, it's funny enough, it's on YouTube. Like someone just put it up recently,
Yeah.
so I hadn't heard it for yonks. And there's
Probably Sean Thompson.
pretty good songs on there, but it's like, it was a good time, and doing it with Rob was fun. But I have to say, my darling wife, Carol, sang backing vocals on there, which is another weird thing. Like, that was another thing. They said, let's have some female backing vocals. Like, the Trilobytes never had female backing vocals.
Yeah.
So I'm just going, whatever. And my wife can sing, or she wasn't my wife then, but Carol can sing, right? And she can. She's great. So she comes down, she sings on the album, and it's just like, in hindsight, listening to it now, it's just like, how is that the Trilobytes? Just totally not. But she didn't get credited on the album too. So,
I got a couple of those stories myself.
yeah, anyway, but it's not my proudest piece of work, but I listen to that album now, I think, it's pretty bloody good. And the single, that was really good. So, it's just, anyway.
They emerged out of my local area when I was a young fella. They were called the Psychotics.
Right,
Yeah, and they used to rehearse at the Rhythm Workshop in Hurstville.
right.
And we'd be in the rehearsal room next door, and my band was like this rehashed AC/DC stuff. We'd see these weedy little punk kids next door. We'd want to bash them,
I remember not long after we'd been in Sydney, but we'd played quite a few gigs already, and we'd seen a couple of bands like X and stuff that we'd play with, and the Hard-Ons and that. Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. And then Tony came home one night, I said, Gaz, man, I saw this band tonight. Fuck me. And it was the Trilobytes.
Yeah.
Never forget it.
Melody.
It was the first time ever that, Tony was really animated about a band that we'd played with, or he'd seen. So,
Marty's melody, there was harmony, there was all that stuff,
oh, it's wonderful.
had it going on.
I love
yeah,
it.
a little bit of social angst in there as well. It was, Trilobytes were awesome. American TV,
Brilliant.
Great song. Legacy
Absolutely brilliant.
Awards, great
Unique,
song.
brilliant.
Yeah. Venus in leather.
Maz mixed their early stuff, didn't he? Maz did their early stuff.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Did Maz mix one of yours?
Oh, he
Voodoo
did.
Lust?
He did. God almighty. See? A single.
Yeah, I read
Wasn't
that today.
it this one?
Ooh, hey, that,
Kathy's on heat. Oh dear!
Produced by
I
Chris
remember that.
Mazurek. Now that is the hardest song to find anywhere. I might just throw in because
that
it's
got us
been
in so much trouble, that song.
it's been
Oh,
scrubbed.
dear.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get that one past the censors these days.
Yeah.
God, that fucked our career a bit, I'll tell you. Really did, eh? It had a big impact. It's funny, it's a laugh now, but radio stations that had always played us before.
Yeah.
We play it called us sexist and all this stuff. It was like, oh my God.
There's nothing wrong with being sexy, Gary.
It's a joke. But yeah, I get it. And like, obviously, that's not going to pass no guidelines, But Tony thought it was funny. Like, we always had our tongues in our cheek, Voodoos. We thought we were hilarious. Not everyone else did every time. So.
Yeah.
We all did.
The funniest part about the name of that song though is not the in heat part. It's just Kathy. Just that name is the funniest part. 'Cause it's such a, you expect maybe Scarlet in heat or something like that. But
the interesting thing around that is that you cannot find that particular song, Kathy's on Heat, anywhere. It seems to have been scrubbed from YouTube.
That's funny. Yeah, well, there you go.
But How Do You Sleep at Night? The B-side is on YouTube. So
Rob Younger, actually, Chris Mazurek does some backing vocals on How Do You Sleep
yeah,
as well. Yeah. So he produced it and does some backing vocals. Hi, Chris.
Hey, tell us about Dr. Bombay. You've been going there for 10 years. So
Yeah. Well, we've had 2 albums so far, and the third one's sort of 90% finished. So we're excited about that. Some people might have seen, our bass player did his last gig with us on the weekend, so that's kind of thrown a little spanner in the works. But he's finishing the record with us, so that's great. It's nice of him. And then we'll replace him, or we already have. We've already got a guy that we're sort of working in at the moment. And then, release the record. And, we'll be back out. I'm very, very excited about the new album, that's for sure. Stu DeLacy is a guitar player. He's been with the band for the whole time, 10 years. A few different bass players along the way. We had Greg Baxter at first from President's 11. If anyone remembers those guys. He played on the first 2 albums.
President's 11.
President's 11.
Summer Vacation. What a classic.
Yeah, well, that was Greg. He's a wonderful bass player. And, for the last 5 years, we've had Terry and Chris Dixon brothers, who drummer and bass player, and they were in Sentinel back in the 80s. Sort of,
Chris is ex-tribesman as well.
He was in the Screaming Tribesmen, that's right. And
like everybody else we know.
Yeah, that's right. He was their best drummer, though.
Yeah.
They were also in Charles Foster Kane, that did pretty well for himself. So wonderful rhythm section, like, wow, fantastic. So
I remember mixing him in a band called Lemongrass.
Okay, yeah. Just great players, and so just really lucky, obviously just write the songs and everything, and then to have a great band who are happy to offer their time and skills to play them is always an honour, I always feel like that. I certainly just think, wow, these great musicians are happy to, put up their time and come and play, so I'm ecstatic.
Not for the money.
Well, the only band I've ever made any money out of is the Viscounts. The only cover band I've ever been in is the Viscounts, and I was only in the Viscounts for about 18 months, maybe 2 years at the most. And, made more money in that 18 months than the other 48 years, put together.
There you go.
Yeah, and so we played covers and just, we got good money. It was crazy, actually. Well, good money. So.
Unbelievable. So what's next? So you've got an album coming out. Any other projects in the works, Gary? Or
I've been, I'm always thinking of other things to do. We're ringing. Someone ringing? I'm always got so many sort of songs that I just kind of write bits of, and then I'll just put them aside because I don't like to finish them if I haven't got an outlet. So I've got hundreds, literally, of ideas and songs, hundreds.
Yeah.
Every different feel imaginable. So, I'd love to do like a soul thing, I'd love to do a country thing. I don't know. I'm always thinking of, for the last 3 or 4 months, I've been going nuts learning to play piano. So, I have to stop myself from writing because I'm not good enough yet. So as soon as I start going, dunk, dunk, I think, I can think of a song around that, So even a piano album, I don't know. I just keep going until I just don't feel like doing it. But I've just, I feel like I can do a few more songs yet and a few more records yet, for sure.
Braggy, it feels like we've got to hold an unfinished song weekend, get all these musicians that have got little snippets of songs, get them all into a room and sort of maybe
I think every songwriter everywhere has got those things stashed away.
They do. And with the advent of phones, it's just made it even crazier.
Yes.
Like I purposely won't pick up the guitar because, like, if I pick up the guitar, I'll think of something. So then if you think of something, you can't not record it. And then you've just got another one to add to the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that at some point you've got to filter through, which, getting back to earlier about the COVID thing, that was a kind of bit of a blessing because that gave me that moment where I went, right, And I literally went through hundreds and hundreds of ideas and narrowed down. I got down to like 18 songs that I totally finished and demoed and completed totally before I gave to the band,
Yeah.
So, I think as a writer, that's what you need. You need a reason and an outlet, So I just need another reason, which for me will be the next album. I've already got enough songs for the next album, for sure. It's just a matter of going, right, well, knuckle down and finish off these songs, which with the next album will give me the incentive, But at the moment, it's this album, for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And that name, Dr. Bombay, is that from Bewitched?
It is.
Yes, it is.
That's how we got it. We were going to call ourselves Calling Dr. Bombay. The original drummer got Max, actually. He came up with it. And then it's so hard these days. I don't know, like the last time we tried to get a band name, I know you've just got Jupiter 5, Rossi, but to try to find an original band name now is nearly impossible because, because of the web. It's like back in our day, you only knew bands that were like you knew. And now it's like, every band in the world's name is on file somewhere. So it's like, we went through thousands of names. Fucking hell, I can't get a name. As it is, Dr. Bombay is this parody artist from America. And, to try to find us, you have to try and get through his 100 parody. It's painful sometimes. But,
the way we count Jupiter 5 is we're in a room.
Bombay. in Townsville.
Well, there you go. Well, there's a cover band also in America called Dr. Bombay. So,
Barman booked us a gig, me, Vince and Jay. We'd been rehearsing and he booked us a gig and said, "Hey, look, I'm sick of it. You guys playing a gig." And then we went, "Fuck, we better come up with a name." So we're in the rehearsal room. We had 15 minutes. That came up, done. That's it. We're out. It's like, what's cold chisel mean? What's Vegemite mean? After a while, it becomes it.
That's true.
That's right. Yeah.
Music talks. The name doesn't matter, does it? Really?
That's right.
No, that's right.
Absolutely. Hey, Braggy, part 3 of Who Am I? Let's see if Rossi's going to be right.
Okay. So he's just joined Samson. The band had already released their debut album, Survivors, in 1979, 2 months before I joined, and although the tracks didn't suit my vocal style, the band soon wrote the majority of the following album in their earliest rehearsal sessions, some of which were immediately incorporated into the live set. The band was fun for a while, but I soon learnt that not all performers were great artists, and some, like Samson, were only interested in women, drugs, and alcohol, which I was unable to relate to. During this period, the band I would eventually front supported us at the Music Machine in 1980. I was watching them and they were good, really fucking good. And at that moment, I remember thinking, I want to fucking sing for that band. In fact, I'm going to sing for that band.
I think you'll find their bass player's a West Ham supporter.
I know I'm going to sing for that band. I just thought, this is really me, not Samson. My last gig with Samson was at the Reading Festival, after which I was approached by the manager of the aforementioned band. I can't say because you'll get it. And asked to audition as their new lead vocalist. At the rehearsal room in Hackney in September 81, I immediately discovered that this was a much more professional operation than I was used to with Samson. In the practice rooms, the band played through 4 of their songs before asking me to sing the same songs again in the recording studio, and I was immediately inducted into the group. After a few gigs, they began writing new material for their 3rd album, Number of the Beast, released in 1982. Yep. The album was a major success, topping the British charts and earning platinum status in the UK. Known primarily for my high-range vocals, I have also been described as a true polymath, due to non-musical activities such as writing, broadcasting, fencing, placing 7th in Great Britain, beer brewing, and aviation. I am the lead singer for Iron Maiden, and my name is
Bruce Dickinson.
Yo.
Wow.
I still don't know.
Bruce Dickinson. Oh, you wouldn't know, would you, Gaz?
No.
Gaz would know that. Gaz would know that deep down
one.
I've been a metalhead.
I had to do a metal one for last week. So
Now, again, like Deep Purple, one of my favourite bands, ever, and they get associated with metal, but like to me, they're a rock and roll band.
yeah,
Like
they're rock and roll. Yeah,
rock and roll band,
Ian Pace, man, Ian Pace.
A wonderful bouncy drummer. He's got the bounce that that you die for. And Richie Blackmore, like Tony and I were talking about this the other day. He has the cleanest tone going. Metal bands don't. He's every single note clear as a whistle that he's playing. It's like a different technique.
We discussed Richie Blackmore at work, and he plays like he plays strats, as we know. He plays strats, and maple necks are for breaking, says Richie.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's
and
not
so
Deep Purple.
Every time I get a maple neck, I go maple necks are for breaking.
Wonderful guitar player, and one of Tony Harper's.
One of those tones that is so instantly recognisable. As soon as you hear that tone, you go, "That's got to be Tony."
And again, for Tony Harper, Rossi would appreciate earlier he could play every note Blackmore could play. That was the kind of stuff he grew up just emulating. Yeah, he could play it perfectly.
I saw Blackmore in '76 in Sydney.
Yeah, that's right.
Blackmore, he's phenomenal.
Listen to Hold On off Stormbringer. You listen to the solo on that. It's just this. It's a written piece of music in itself. It's beautiful. Like it's just so impressive. Like to me,
he's not a metal player. He's too smart.
To me, that's. I guess I come from again after the Elvis Costello thing as well. Like it's like if a guitar solo to me, if it's not a piece of music, I don't want to hear it.
Exactly, it's got to be a composition.
Not interested in some guitar playing. I can fuck off. Not interested.
Yeah,
it's got to be a written piece of music. Otherwise, it's just a waste of space. Don't play for 30 seconds and write another song and go on to the next song. And I guess gets back to that, punk, but Elvis and Joe Jackson, that early, power pop era, which is like, don't waffle on, just do another song, Yeah.
Get to the point.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
Well, gents,
sorry for all the guitar people out there. And even Tony's probably a little bit offended. Sorry, mate.
Tony plays all right, though.
Like, I don't respect their skill and all that, totally. It's just, I get back. I just like pop songs. You don't put metal solos in the middle of pop songs.
What was the guy from the Cars, man? He's one of my favourite solos.
Rick Ocasek.
Oh, no, the guitar player, the lead guitarist. Some of those solos on the Cars songs are just spot.
Well, that's what we're talking about, aren't we? I mean, they weren't, a million notes. They were just beautifully written melodies.
You go away and you remember them.
Be an alternate melody. That's the other thing I don't fan of either, is when it comes to solo and they just play the melody of the song. It's like, just leave that out. Just make the song a bit shorter. It doesn't serve any purpose to me. The solo should be that. It should be a written piece. And again, Tony Harper, every guitar solo of his is a written piece, and he plays it exactly the same every time. It's wonderful.
That's correct.
Because he's a songwriter. I think that's probably a bit of a difference between guitar players who are songwriters and guitar players who are, veteran guitar players.
There was that time when he did buy the Charvel Jackson Model 6 guitar, though.
It didn't look the best of Charvel, did it? It didn't fit the verbiage.
No. The no-tone zone.
Yeah. Too pointy.
Yeah,
disgraceful.
When we did a last reunion gig, he bought I think 3 different guitars to every rehearsal, but he bought a flying V that was reversed.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was just like, what the fuck is every guitar in the world? And he's got a reversed flying V.
The V's are back up there, and the neck comes out of where the V's are, right?
That's crazy.
Carina.
Unbelievable.
No. Very desirable, very collectible.
Worth a fortune, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is.
All right, gents, we've been going for 2 minutes past the hour.
Right.
So we might start doing the wind-up. Gary, what we will do, if we can, when your new album comes out with Dr Bombay, we'd love to get you back on the show and talk us through that.
I would love that.
That would be awesome. And I think also potentially there's a guitar special that we should do so that you guys
I can try and get Tony in if you want. Tony and together. I just got to quickly mention a band Grumpy too. Like, sorry, but after I moved back up to Brisbane, I had a whole bunch of songs, 30 or 40 songs I'd written, and I was rehearsing them with Skater. Like, Skater and I were going to do something together. And then he got offered to go to England with his sister to play guitar, who's really talented and doing well. And I came up to Brisbane and I started a band then called Grumpy with all these songs I'd written, and we played for 4 or 5 years as well. So just wanted to throw that in there as well. But yeah, that was Andrew Holt was a bass player, and he was in 3B2 all those years before.
Yeah.
But we played around for 5 years as well in that band. So
Need to write a book. Need to write a book, Gary.
Absolutely.
Like some of our other people we've had on here.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it.
This is an example. Yeah, exactly. This is an example of work ethic, though, isn't it? Really,
it is.
Yeah.
It's work ethic.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the only reason I want to get it. I mean, not because it's like, wow, but that was another band where, man, a lot of work went into that, a lot of songs and a lot of gigs, and yeah, Ray and Dave, the guitar player and drummer. I was at the big day out, and I just moved up here, and I had Iggy Pop Raw Power T-shirt on, and I was walking along, and I had a hat on and sunnies and that, and this guy goes, man, that was a great tour, and I lifted up my shirt and I said, yeah, but what a support band, because Voodoo Lust supported Iggy Pop. Raw Power, and on only one gig, but nonetheless, we supported Iggy Pop. So
supported Iggy Pop.
And he goes, what band was that? And I lifted up my glasses and said, Voodoo Lust, and he goes, oh, man, I love Voodoo Lust. He was a guitar player in a band called Love Child. And
Love Child, yeah.
Love Child, yeah. So him and his brother Dave were the guitar player and drummer for Love Child. So I got a band going with him, and then we put an ad in for a bass player. And lo and behold, after this coincidence, I'm at his place going, we've worked through these songs, and we just put an ad for bass player. And the first guy that comes along, we open up the door, and it was Andy, who was the bass player all his years beforehand from 3B2. Wow. It was just like, what the hell?
It was
so yeah. Hey to those guys. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Gary, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'll make sure I've got a link in the show notes to the Facebook page of Dr. Bombay.
Thank you.
And if I can navigate the other Dr. Bombays out there, I'll put some links to some of your music as well.
Dr. Bombay Rock and Roll, Dr. Bombay Australia seems to help a little.
Okay, no worries. If you've liked the show, everyone, please like, subscribe, leave a review. That's always good. We're on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. We've got a website at undiscovered.com. Don't forget, every song we talk about, we try to put them into our Spotify playlist. Unfortunately, I can't put any Voodoo Lust songs into that playlist.
Dr. Bombay.
They're not on Spotify, but where we can, make sure you check it out. I think we're at, I've given up 235 songs are in that playlist now. So
all of our stuff will be on Spotify. When the new album comes out, it will be. Like, we did have it on there for a while and we took it off, but it's all going to go up.
Excellent. So that's Dr. Bombay.
Looking forward to it.
Can't afford it. Yeah.
And as always, lyrics from the playlist from that fantastic band from Perth called The Stems. I'll be your motor in your car. I'll be the fire in your flaming star. I'll be your water in your waterfall, because when I get this feeling, I feel 10 feet tall. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks once again, Gary. And go Queensland tomorrow night. Hey, Rossi.
Yeah, guys.
Knock, knock, I'm a dog.